In the closure of this, my political introduction, I would probably not like to skip mentioning the religions and the fact that they are a recent invention. In substance, we talk about regions and people living on the regions, and we talk about cultures and longevity of the cultures, issues with death, and all of a sudden come religions as a recent fabrication of actual history and somehow prevent us to have much more direct approach to either our origins or ongoing issues that would be um, otherwise seen as much more ongoing inherent issues within the territorial references rather, and would be much more inviting a more direct approach into the subjects of cultural presences and time and interrelation between cultures. It would be much more direct approach, and it would be bringing our attention to actual cultures and actual territories and times. Religions somehow interfere and confuse everything. So it would be useful to not to remember that they are a recent invention, they are complete fabrication, and since recently someone wants to talk about artificial design, that would be solidly in category of artificial design to great an extent, yet profoundly interfering with the way how we relate to territories and various cultural settings on the territories. They provide certain kind of biased approach to how we observe territories, deliver plenty of prejudice, discriminate people, antagonize people, confuse history, and manipulate history. So it is time that we notice religions are artificial and very successful for certain structures, way of manipulating the entire humanity and the entire planet. It has become an excuse for a normal discrimination of certain territories and certain people, and a way to hide real history on these territories, and by in such ways preventing us to have much more comprehensive and interconnected approach in understanding our history and in substance who we are, or rather how we should be thinking about ourselves. And then events happen and people hardly can understand. It appears like some kind of miracle because we have become so disconnected, so emboxed in little boxes of mental fabrications of various kinds, and continue to be further detached from reality. In accepting to be as such, we allow variety of manipulative games to continue to take place on the planet and to continue to manipulate not just conditions of our lives, but increasingly ourselves as well. And it is time, therefore, that we start taking out various artificial designs that have taken that much place in our lives, in the reality, and have prevented us to understand the world in which we live. Accordingly, I'm going to find religions in such category as something that I was certainly reluctant to immediately jump into revolutionary changes overnight because, as I have explained, last century is teaching us how mistakes can happen on grand scale and devastations can happen on grand scale, and it is irreversible. We talk about millions of people lives devastated, enormous devastations. It's not on this book to talk about this, but it is absolutely devastating event last century that triggered this entire work, triggered this entire anger, triggered this awareness that we cannot allow any more such mistakes on such grand scale to take place. And because of that, I was reluctant to assist any more a revolutionary jump overnight as it was at the beginning of 10 years, a movement to completely take down religions. The question was, what would be replacing that enormous empty space that would be left? And here we're awakening the tribes and tribunal societies with their value systems and their belief systems. One of that was, for example, as of European tribes associated to Germanic tribes, for example. To introduce some kind of euthanasia over old people. I lost my aunt at the age of 60, the day when she was about to get retired. She just died. She was never sick before. She was very well taken care of a woman. She looked after herself. She just died. She just disappeared from Earth overnight. At first day of her retirement. It looked to me as someone wanted to reintroduce that level of Germanic value systems. And it scared me a lot how notorious, understanding the previous century and being very much aware how notorious systems can be. I didn't want it to change anything overnight. Certainly not to give place to something that is worse rather than improvement. But I'm going to say religions are artificial concepts and they will need to go. I will notice accordingly, therefore, let's notice that as well, that we talk about serious level of mental illness among older societies. Associated to, therefore, Nordic basin as well, because Nordic basin, it might turn to be the case, one of the oldest basins on the territories, on the planet. Because it is pole related. And it might be that relating to pole south or north pole, we might find the oldest tribes. It is because it happened ice age that is all now covered up, and we don't know our real history. But the fact is that even when we talk about Mesopotamia, when we talk about Sumerians and Babylon and Anunnakis and things like that, it's still somehow associated to something sliding from the north. And a good part of the history is therefore frozen, including the beginnings. But in South America, you also find plenty of findings. South America is also pole-related event. But what that also means? Well, mental illness, because these are very old societies. And that is why you find in Germany what you find. And now instead that we interfere or deal directly with the problems and issues that are associated with the territories and with the cultures, someone bring us these religions in between of all of that perception, and the religions actually block everything. They completely block your mind. They make you completely like an imbecile, like everything is hands of God, and we become marionettes, and we become dolls in our own life. I'm going to find therefore that is number one thing that we should be doing, and that is dealing with religions and simply taking away religions and starting much more direct approach with understanding cultures, understanding our history in real terms, and learning how to relate to it. That become now critical point. Or let's not say taking them down, but let's say thinking about their place in our lives, thinking about how correct that approach is. Are we not going to talk about communities now, rather, of people that have chosen to live like that? Are we not going to start understanding them more as some kind of cultural centers or social centers? Rather than, I wouldn't go, rather than matters of God. I have not been studying religion. In socialism, there was not anything, any education about religion or in relation to religion. Which is also questionable, very much. Um, it should have been at least an enclosed study of religion in the way how you study languages, as a matter of orientation, as a matter of awareness, because there are so many countries around you that are religious, and it would be logical that you have some basic information about what other people completely live by. So at least some kind of historic, some kind of reference to that probably would have needed to be provided. But I would say again, what is rather to be noticed as a historic event should not be covered by religions, translated by religions, and manipulated by religions. I think at that point they are using credibility. Now that we have established that they have been open ground using actual historic events, and that they have just translated them or transformed them into religious characters, indicate enough about grand scale of manipulation of the entire religious stories, and or we might talk about, no, it's still to me not, we might talk about willing a next generation of transformation of these characters, or reincarnations we would call them then, into new age phenomena as religion became new age phenomena. That is for that particular ancient region after discovery of Buddhism. Yet let's establish where Buddhism emerges. As far as I am familiar with history of Buddhism, it emerges somewhere in 6th century after Christ. Now that is not exactly would explain Christ unless that piece of information is manipulated, which certainly is manipulated, because it is absolutely unacceptable. And I don't know why that exists in encyclopedias and history books, that Buddhism would start in 6th century BC. Maybe they were thinking of some kind of formal religion, some kind of registration perspective. But would you agree that is for how long Buddhism exists? I wouldn't say. I wouldn't say. So that is the critical momentum here. The critical momentum is how we are going to understand now Judaism, Christianity versus Buddhism. These are the questions that we need to answer. these are matters will need to be clarified because everything is stuck in that particular event. I have noticed with my work that religions are profoundly exploiting actual historic events, especially of ancient Macedonian Empire, which transforms somehow overnight into Roman imperialism. No one talks about how that actually happened. And here we have that religion happening in exact period of time, confiscating completely the characters of the ancient Macedonia plateau, transforming them into religious artifacts, and using them as artifacts to the present days free of charge. This has become now a critical point that will explain my free of charge application in the societies. And I'm going to find that Bitcoin emerging out of it now. I'm going to find that profoundly inappropriate and basically entasking or certainly indebting anyone to participate into further insisting that these matters actually start being answered, start being explained, and start being dealt with. Let us notice that Judaism here does have some kind of central position, and let us notice that Israel is complete marionette, which would indicate that Judaism in substance is complete marionette. Now let us notice also to whom. Previously that would have been Roman imperialism, today that is America. Accordingly, the key solution to the entire saga of emergence of Judaism and from there the rest of the three religions, it reminds very much to three wise men, by the way, would be profoundly centered now in America. And America and the system in America of America and the way how America is constructed become now key to answering that entire manipulation of 2 millenniums. Here I have detected, therefore, the prime societies of America, because clearly they are the one that would have been in position to manipulate such events to such grand scale. And here I'm going to notice, therefore, some of the oldest of the societies should not be underestimated. And that is in this particular case, when it is in question, America appeared to be strongly Ireland, strongly Celtic society, strongly their presence all over the territories, all the way to once upon a time existing Khazaria on place of present Ukraine. Someone trying to recover it again, which would be indicating enormous presence of these structures still on the field. And their capacity to be involved in international politics on grand scale from all the earliest of the times and continue to do so. It is very hard to draw the line here now. Very hard to draw the line of their movements from my positions. So I cannot assist with any specifics. Even this statement, very last statement, to accuse only Celtics to which group I belong myself. It looks to me overstretched because I have not done any actual examination. I'm just reading the position of the territories in given historic events, like some kind of photographic shot. But I have not done any more specific investigation because I do not believe that that's possible, because these are all hidden documents, and it would not be so easy to start researching. Also, it would be more useful probably to monitor territories from some kind of more, taking a few steps back, more kind of from more grand perspective, ignoring more specific details, just to notice the movement of the tribes in all of the times, and to notice how they behave and how they are positioned, especially in America. Especially in America, when it comes to powers in governments, powers in White House, and how and who is actually in real terms controlling White House. That will provide solid answers to how we understand then the history pre-Roman Empire, pre-Jesus events, as that is the key that would indicate how that enormous manipulation started at that given point of time and continue to exist and as a manipulation on grand scale. We need to recognize who are the players of this grand scale manipulation. I think that's the more fair way to close this entire saga that I delivered here. This work that happened as an explosion, not as a result of some extensive investigation, but as a result of alarming, of need to alarm how far the wrongdoing went, how far people have become simply absorbed into all of that, and how far we as a civilization start to degenerate rather than to develop. It was alarming. For me as a mother, as a woman, it was alarming, and I could have not stayed silent. I pulled out everything that I possibly could have pulled out, wanting to present exactly such a work that would be completely unbiased and not relying on any written information, just on my senses and my capacity to notice things. And in such way, providing the most pure and unbiased base for people to then start thinking, and we all start investigating into more specifics the real events that have taken place and that started this enormous level of manipulative games. So my next stage would be getting more into specifics, starting to read and get myself informed about various aspects. Probably I would start reading about the previous civilizations. It looks to me the best way how to start reading about our real history. And yes, to also try to understand how religion happened and how religion exists today. I have not taken out of equation that they happened as in time as more natural answer to certain sentiment of certain category of people that found themselves inclined to think in certain ways and behave in certain ways. And so far that would be fine. What is not fine here, the degree to which they started to interfere with the affairs of other people and to disable other people, to manipulate other people, and the extent to which religion become a factor to manipulate the grounds and manipulate the people on the territories. That is where we will need to start questioning religion now, including monarchies as well. I have been promoting to grand scale monarchies from the aspect of my native or my kind of inner instincts, recognizing my place in that kind of history of all of the times, and defending obviously what how my character would be happening in certain given historic time, recognizing that design studio of cultures. Now, how that developed in time is another question. And we always have to monitor such things. You start some protocol, you have to monitor how it develops. You cannot just give it up. It became too much ended to be inboxed event in its own dimension rather than to be in control of the events. And that is not exactly same situation. I'm going to find today monarchy is becoming a step away from entertaining boxes, literally, like some kind of political museums, historic museums, literally. And everyone forgets that in substance that these are the real foundations of any national history upon which they continue to use national flags and reference to national flags and reference to national identity. And I found right their complete antagonism and dishonesty, I would rather say, where nations continue to hold to their national symbols and talk about national identity, but then hold their houses, their principal national houses, in complete obsoleteness and I would say even disrespect. And that is very much dual, that is very much hypocritical, very much inappropriate versus your own history. Today, everyone is tolerating random people to generate enormous amount of wealth and live like kings and queens. But real kings and queens ended to be mocked down, like they are nothing, like they are worth nothing, and like they mean nothing. But we all know that would be wrong answer. Now, it is another question when systems continue not to be maintained and they continue to be lured or played down and downplayed and made fool of. But certainly the question would arise of how today ownership would be understood. I noticed that they immediately jumped to play with such words, although it was done in the movies. Not, I have not heard it from characters neither. I would have opportunity to investigate how mentally that would develop in their mindset. But in the movies, it was easier to say, promoting them as owners and getting that into their mouth, that there it is, that now they're awakening that sense of ownership. I'm not sure that that would be the real information. Anyway, the moment you start using such words, ownership, it becomes reincarnated everything else that today in any previous time should have been questioned from constitutional perspective. But not but people always go into extreme and tend to go into extremes and just wipe out things like that rather than to deal with something. They're just wiping it out, and I wonder why they would do that. Is it because they would not have skill, maybe how to deal with that with much more competence? And probably that is why we find our entire planet declining today. Lower competence, when lower competence comes on the stage, of course they're going to take it out because they would not have skill or comprehension, not enough intelligence to deal with it. Of course, they're just going to erase it. And that is how you find today Europe. Carnage. In historic terms, carnage. Literally carnage. If you look at Europe today and what has happened in last century, you're talking about enormous devastation happening on mainstream of civilizational playground. And now I'm going to pay attention to rising China, rising India, and rising Africa. Well, that's a very nice story, and I wish them all of the best. But I'm being born in Europe. I have no idea where is my home. I have no idea who are my friends, who is my family, who is not. Where my work is supposed to happen, in what formations. I'm being threatened the other day, India, to categorize me in category of their new production of chips. I'm leading planetary conversation for 15 years. No one is going to call me chip on anything. I'm the one questioning today relations of all of the religions versus Buddhism. India does not have guts to spell out that sentence. Someone like that is not going to talk to me about chips. From my perspective, the chips is where they have been in all of the time. Exactly on these territories. That continue to dance with invisible forces and continue to surrender this planet on the behalf of every one of us. I'm going to say again to India, if you're looking of production of chips, look no further than where you are exactly, as you and China today are leading this planet in production of chips for one reason, because that is how you treat your people. Nations like that are not going to lead this planet, not anytime soon. They should learn first. Their lectures. Today I am the one that pulled out the protocol human. I am the one that gave credit to the human, the concept of human. And now I'm going to be walked over by some societies that continue to talk about their own people as chips. Such societies are not going to lead the world. The main reason why I want to question today is the entire concept of religion is recognizing that somehow out of all that polarization, the Muslim religion got some kind of downfall, became somehow set up, or maybe it was become a result of most natural development of certain sentiment. But the fact is that certain forces on this planet, when they notice even if the slightest abnormality, they're going to drive you into it and become gigantic abnormality, and you get sucked out by your own little abnormality that would appear at the beginning. It becomes the biggest event that takes you over. So be aware if you have little imperfections, work on them, because they would be using them against you. That is what happened with Muslim religion. Whatever it was imperfection at the given time, and that was exactly that relation on black versus white, escalated to such proportions. And I know that on the territories that never was that much of an issue. But someone used that to make you today in 21st century circulate around some Mecca monument as complete planetary embarrassment, and you don't know how to get out of it. And that is where Muslim population, entire Muslim population, end up being completely played down, outwritten, completely not just discriminated, but literally killed. Literally killed with that picture and such pictures going on internet out there. Muslim religion is being executed. Death penalty. Now, how they have been brought into such conditioning gradually of something that was existing as some kind of incidental this I'm not going to say disproportion, but difference, incidental difference, became such grandiose event of such grandiosely polarized identities that have been living on territories in millenniums. And someone made such grandiose event of the biggest conflict one can talk about in present times. Now that has been done completely artificially. And in the same way, we continue to be numbed and uninformed about the real history of the territories. But such events continue to pull us away from us searching for real history because we simply do not have time for it. We continue to be threatened by very, very real and very material events and dangerous associated with very recent political happenings. Not get out of being threatened by various political happenings in any given time. In last century, it was First, Second World War. Didn't give you time to think about any history behind it. Couple of high-stake adventurers, that is, read scientists, certainly managed to get out from the mania caused by two world wars of last century and managed to do scientific search, scientific work. Most of the population was taken by the war itself. Notice how that continued to manipulate and hold the attention of population. Random wars are not being invented for the sake of having random wars or cleaning the population. That is nonsense. It would have been invented to hold on your attention, so you would not be mentally be present where you should be present. Whoever are wishing something like that for us might have on stake something much more colossal, and we should not be so naively agreeing to any theatrical stage they prepare for us in any new time, including this work. This is call for awakening, not theatrical event or Bitcoin event. But people are too much confused, too much scared, too much desperate to identify how they should be relating to certain events. And they just continue to accept what is the easiest and most logical approach. And by doing so, they're dancing exactly how someone wanted them to dance. And you continue to be exactly such manipulative item as they exactly wanted you to be. Who are they is our real question and the real event of this real time. Who are they? Where Iron Curtain was in place, it was easier to speculate who are they. So I have to notice if you're on east side of the story, they is on the west side. If you're on the west side of the story, is on the east. And that was working for quite some time to give time for someone to go away and find both of the sides today in devastation. Well, while they're still, to great an extent, convinced that they is just the other political side. I think the story is harder than that. It's much more complex and more complicated than that. What walks on the surface. So, what we can do in the given circumstances? Maybe it's harder to say be part of the solution when you would not know what it is. But use your senses, at least not to be part of the problem. That should be easier. And just listening 15 minutes of international news reminded me strongly that I have not started this entire event just as journalist, but I started it as a monarch. I even gave a vow to the planet, and that was basically with intention to say, after realizing that there is a huge chunk of movements of people um, going around me and my entire existence, I felt as, and I really was not that much informed at all about ground affairs. I felt as, since I recognize that I am some kind of centerpiece, the most natural reaction was to declare my monarchy stamp, since I already started to meddle around, to think about things. Certain information were already given to my attention. So obviously I was having some kind of starting information to start doing something about it. The initial, the initial reaction was starting to write and starting my analytical approach, combining the newly given information with my perspectives, and my previous memories became a bit more meaningful. I started to bring much more substantial, much more dubious analysis. It became started to connect. And we reached here with this presentation stage where we actually accomplished the entire billboard of a historic energetic table we call realm today, to basically unveil in front of our eyes as it is today, as it functions today, in reconnecting it with the recent history, and even 2 millenniums of history became reconnected with that table I generated here. And I am going to remind myself that I also declared the Counseling Office of United Nations as actual function, and I also actually delivered, worked out the draft of Constitution of Earth, upon which I set some legal grounds of how we are going to approach and how we should be approaching various issues on the planet, providing therefore certain ground, a level, as when you're doing in PlayStation, you provide a playground, some kind of mental state of mind where you then, as an intelligent being, start deploying your perception of yourself, your perception of the world in which you live, and you engage yourself in more meaningful way, and do not feel as you're lost or you're wasting time and things like that. So we needed to provide for people such kind of sensation, such kind of sentiment, and um, um, uh, I'm bringing that kind of statement that is how you define a realm, that is how you define a protocol, and that is how you launch the protocol living on Earth. In such a way, by providing the standard, some kind of civilizational standard and civilizational normative that is associating with a majority, with 7 billion of humans, and you find here the humanity solidly falling in that category of that kind of mental game field, belonging to that mental game field. You declare, as we declared here humanity. I declared it in my Constitution of Earth. I declared the realm as it is in our Constitution of Earth, because we are very serious about this realm. We get born here, we start having kids, families, it's a very strong emotional charging, very strong attachment. It is a realm that exists on the parameters of its events, and is being stamped like that. And in the context of that realm, the game field recognized with the issues as well. From in what context we understand or we locate how we should be understanding or recognizing extremism, either in historic terms or in religious terms or in conceptual terms. We have done that with my work. We have established or reaffirmed, therefore, what would be called mainstream, yet not mainstream in this kind of narrow media-related event, but mainstream in terms of entire socio-political platform upon which we exist on this planet. We have recognized that by stamping it, by recognizing what is critically important and sacred to all of us, and in such way we have declared our protocol human, have declared human of earth, and have defined a realm accordingly that allows that kind of life to happen. We recognize our association to animals. We recognize that humans step up from animals as more intelligent human being. We connect to capacity of our brain, also recognize that most of it is in a sleepy mode. It is still going to be about what you need out of your brain in a given sequence of the eternal universal level of existence. And if this is in-boxed realm, then one would imagine we use in-boxed capacity of our mind. It has been recognized as a garden of cultures. And we have recognized that from such a box, we call our realm, our planet, and our protocol of humanity, we can then ask questions and observe the rest of reality, but not accepting someone to diminish, destroy, or harass our realm that for many of us is sacred, means what it means. It provides us integrity, provides us dignity, provides us capacity to engage in our regular life and be with strong sense of integrity engaged in living our life on this planet. The mind or intelligence become relative to the game in which you are or what you do in your life. When you're making a dinner, you're using as much intelligence as you need it for making a dinner. When you're driving a car, you need as much intelligence as you need for driving a car. You don't need more intelligence. You don't need intelligence of driving a space shuttle because when you're driving a car. So there is very little ground someone to call you stupid just because you live in certain ordinary conditions or in certain specific realm in which we are. And because someone managed to, or exists in some kind of stepped away from real event in some kind of cave conditions and can talk about intelligence in more universal levels, and now that is intelligent. No, that is relative. Intelligent is relative to certain way of thinking or certain dimension. What happens when I started to brought myself in this level of thinking? Was I employing the intelligence of driving a car? No, well, it became more intelligence of driving a space shuttle. And I declared that as well. But you were all convinced that my intelligence stops at the level of driving a car. Well, you see, that turned to be the wrong answer. So why would it be different for any other of human beings? So let's not underestimate our intelligence, and let's not bring that question as a matter of identity, because that would be a relative question. And let's discuss matters in the relativity of which these matters exist, including this world. I therefore am going to conclude. I'm certainly not going to find myself in promise to support the presidential candidates. I have said that from day one. I have clarified here that I declared monarch of Earth protocol for quite some time. I'm going to find ridiculously annoying mainstream media trying to attach my work to some American presidents out there, and I'm going to notice desperate attempt of Americans to confiscate my work, all for the benefit of Americans, which is absolutely annoying considering the fact that I am nothing of American. I mean, not nothing of American, but I'm not American citizen. And And when occasionally I make a joke and say I am American, that is because I recognize Statue of Liberty. I noticed Statue of Liberty. I noticed that woman at Columbia Pictures, and that makes me to say I am American. But that is more metaphysical, one would say. So let's keep our perspective on this event, how it should be. Let's not underestimate what we as a world today need to do, and let's respect this world more, Americans, and let's be less selfish. I have declared counseling my function as counseling officer of the United Nations and cannot be in any other way. The only question is, do we have suitable United Nations? Of course. So it becomes also a matter of constitutional question, because the office, the counseling office, is actually bringing constitutional worth. Accordingly, it would reflect and affect the United Nations and how it has been organized so far. So we are at very early beginning of reforming the United Nations as a matter of planetary functioning. And then I get on a daily basis American presidency, like walking over all of the previous. Well, excuse me, it cannot be accepted, number one. Number two, if continue to be persistent, we will need to start questioning what are the forces behind it. That is behind America. And I will need to talk here also about something that turned to be very acute and very intense. And that would be, it has become also a matter of, or question of identity, when it is in question, where are in question certain imperial territories that historically have been charted as associated to most important historic events at given historic times, that are in many ways still undersigning the present entire political sentiment of the region. Speaking therefore the regions of former ancient Macedonia, today very much incorporating here the playground of former Yugoslavia, including especially Serbia and the entire troubles with Kosovo, which appear to be equally strongly referring to real ancient Serbia, where we have strong identity questions going on for quite some time, and identity questions are actually critical point to everything and should not be underestimated. Similar situation, very similar, we have in Britannia with Ireland, Northern Ireland, Scotland, and versus England, where it became very acute, especially in England, identity question that provides plenty of turbulences on the entire Britannia Peninsula, as well as causes similar turbulences in the ancient region of former kingdoms of Macedonia and Greece and old Serbia. Therefore, we talk about identity question that became acute for quite some time, and that is in association with the entire fame of Babylon and Babylonian societies that have been building a slow motion interference with this cultural and heavy historic events, and where Vatican appears now as a centerpiece of such 2 millenniums of open ground, actually not just intrusion but infiltration of different identity prototypes on the territories with very rigid, very harsh ambition of taking over our identities. So I have been reporting and speaking for quite some time about phenomenon of takeover. Here it is where my the beginning of my speech today cannot continue to be in format of sleeping beauty. Here we have to awaken. This is point that play very much in Britannia and on and Greece, ancient Greece, Macedonia plateau, as a takeover momentum, and it will need to be understood properly. I'm not going to use accidental episodes in my life, for example, as a solid ground on which I would be drawing such heavy conclusions that would affect life of thousands of people today. I would rather like to that we observe these matters as a matter of some kind of statistics, as a matter of some kind of movements, not as a matter of personal criminal, but as a matter of movement of the population, demographic movements, or tribunal movements of tribes, and notice what would be, is there any political ground there that we should be noticing. But that I would not like us to, that we become witch hunters here. It would be not fair versus next generation kids that would be merging and would be innocent versus such politics that we would not know even for what reasons would have been accepted and played on the territories for a longer period of time. We talk here about black and white. We talk about gods versus the deities of the sky versus the humans of earth. We talk about little people versus mega people. It is plenty going on, but I'm going to focus this time especially to phenomenon Babylonians that happen as a more of a unique group that brings, from my perspective, as my observations would recognize characters with higher degree of irritation, a higher degree of sense of disagreement or sense even of revenge, very much revengeful, more on positions of some kind of Al-Qaeda platform, angry on something, revengeful on something, wanting to take over, wanting to dominate, not bringing enough capacity on the territories, developing systems of various malware function in order to accomplish taking over, developing the negative approach, is developing philosophy on the other side of correct, as some kind of philosophical arguing, developing in Europe for quite some time via Tesla platform, the questioning the law of physics, the law of energy, the law of electricity, diminishing the law of human and human society and human platform and human identity, and walking over everything that previous generations were meddling about when it comes to human and what is the standard definition of human. Overtaking that, trying to overwrite with some kind of Neverland psychology that ends up as English patient each time and in the English labyrinth. Bring us to recognize Englishness in the way how it was always standing up, and it was entertaining maybe in Hollywood, but in real political terms was actually very much increasingly dangerous and increasingly damaging the entire European continent. And that is where joke stops when it is in question England and Britannia, and that is where romanticism stops. That is where our adoration and running after Harry Potter or it would be rather Avatar or movies like that, Game of Thrones, or any of these events emerging as a matter of some kind of dark school of parallel reality that increasingly becomes associated to British Islands, and it become politically questionable. Altogether becomes now, for a variety of reasons that they pulled out, they became now, Britannia became one of the most politically questionable islands on the planet. Reflecting very much events on our territories that appear more to be like more of a bridge and this destination would be Britannia, that continues to become more as a neverland of global politics, increasingly. So that will need to stop. That kind of build-up will need to stop. We need to establish how that is building up, what is causing it, and we need to notice the parameters on which it is happening. So we can be preventful without harshly disturbing or annoying the population, as how any true political management should be: silent, discreet, and intelligent, and humane enough. And therefore, I'm going to ask each of the territories to accept their part of responsibility, to recognize this particular movement I'm talking today about, and accept their part of responsibility, not to be part of the problem on the territories, but part of the solution. That is going to be critically important. Notice the actual historic identity of the territories, and stop attacking it, stop disrespecting it, stop intruding it. If you are there existing as some kind of improvement, then be a good news, not a bad news. As that is how one would admit to improvement. That is how I have admitted to my marriage, looking at it as a good news, and I found nothing else but bad news. I found an entire neverland going on in my life, on my shoulders, going nowhere, yet devastating everything on the way. And you have two loser platforms as a result. And the entire region devastated. And none wins. Well, I can see that, well, certainly Britannia wins. Certainly the Neverland is not that much of a Neverland. They actually have managed to be more of a land. Although, when I say Neverland, is that legally not acceptable from legal perspective. Yet, for quite some time, the law and order on this planet is not exactly a most seriously chosen topic. And yes, that Neverland actually appears to be more and more as a land, and goes away with whatever they have been doing on the way. And that is why on our territories that bridge becomes stronger and stronger, in service to someone else, yet certainly willing to diminish and wipe out everything on its way. And it's time to ask heavy questions. Recognize the identity on the terrain on which you are, and recognize where exactly should be your place, so you know how you should be playing your game. Which would be harder to answer on the final destination of Neverland itself, where the only indicator is who is going to get first out of the racing track, as it becomes the point of finale. Therefore, who is going to reach first is getting a trophy. So, are you going to accept such state of affairs as they are at the moment? Am I supposed to accept to be someone's trophy? And we as a planet are going to sail on that level of takeover? Or we are going to ask who is taking over eventually? Or what is taking over, rather? Even? Or what circle of people are taking over? Playing charade on Earth again? Playing Disneyland on Earth, because we have also that level going on out there in these older societies that are still very predominantly running the capital, the financial game field. Very much impressed with Disneyland. Monarchy become protocol Disneyland. and monarchs become participant of it. So there are multi-leveled questions. And yes, it is valid question that you always ask yourself: are you part of the problem? You're part of the solution. And if you're part of the problem, what size of problem we're talking about? And what is exactly your position there? Many people today are on the position of fallen angels, just rolling their lives for another day, enjoying the fact that they can be excused as fallen angels. And we just roll another day in our lives. Nothing of that should be tolerated. Neither fallen people that continue to be used as players, and someone continue to blame them because they're not capable to solve the actual situation. Everyone is just much more in a blaming game than actually to get hands-on and solve the actual situation. Well, the world is still predominantly male, and I am a female, being excused rather. It's still a man world. You need to get on the ground at some point of time as well, and you need to actually understand in better terms when it is in question, especially the leading presidential levels, how you should prevent on each of the levels such matters to escalate. Having focus on the mainstream playgrounds, because that is where the battle each time is, and that is where we need to prevent manipulations to escalate further on and to continue and to start building. Because we are not we should not be after psychological therapy, but when enormous disasters happen and then one person gets declared evil and you're psychologically in peace. That's psychological therapy. We should be after solving or preventing issues, not after the final stage of psychological therapy of declaring one person responsible for everything. That is not solving problems. That is running away of problems and continue to be passive element in your society. Continuing to be just an audience, incapable to do anything about the theater that is going on in front of you. Being fed as an animal with variety of informations, none of which you're capable to change. Well, then you should stop blaming people as well. Or waiting for someone to be blamed. The game should happen before, not after. Let's notice, therefore, that Britannia or England is not just Neverland. That is an interesting subject in any of Hollywood movies, but actually represent a world financial center. The biggest financial organizations, institutions, centers of the world are in England. And if you engage yourself in investigation of sort, follow the money, that is where you end up. So we have just discovered England today in the way how it has not been talked about in earlier times. It has been always hidden behind the shield of romanticism and storytelling. It is time that we scratch the surface now, because most of us found themselves enough desperate and enough disturbed from their own territories and from their own regularity, from their own skin, should I say. And for most of us, for many of us, it has become a question of trying to identify who is to be blamed for what is happening in our lives. And that usually then you find yourself in various kind of researches, including myself, obviously. And I wasn't exactly using approach following the money, but many people are using exactly that approach rightfully. And of course, I'm using that argument as equally, of course. Although I have been I have been following more stealing identity approach. That is more critical to my life. But as I was not that much aware of the financial background, as I'm getting older and older, I noticed that it is profoundly financial as well. Of course, why anyone would be stealing your identity if it was not for some kind of financial benefit? Everything comes to financial benefit after all. So they would be stealing your identity because they would be after financial benefits. That is answer to my question. And I am looking at England. And that is happening from positions of England. And that is what is England to us now. And of course, I'm going to ask what identity takeover is happening. Because with it go money as well. Because that takeover is not just takeover of identity, but it is also takeover of my money. And I will need to know on what line that is happening. Then we have anti-American society existing as English balloon. Let's make no any mistake here. It is English-speaking territory. Let's make it simple. It's English-speaking balloon. And if we talk takeover in Britain, in England, which is in substance takeover of money that goes with the character, then America is ballooning it in English, ballooning it in American way. That is, we find ourselves in the bigger story of all of the same scenario. And the scenario is therefore, number one, taking over identity, and with it taking over the money. So after all, we would not be talking that much about some romantic concept of deities and the little people, but we would be talking about takeover of identities and takeover of wealth. And that is where story becomes more serious. And that is where we need to look at all of the parameters, where we need to look at and recognize main aspects that cannot be tolerated, that you have continuous game of takeover identities and takeover of their wealth. And in substance, that's all about. It's about taking over identities and taking over their wealth. And even when war are happening, various war are happening, they are targeting specific families, specific identities, their capacity to generate money, and they are taking their money. That is the game on which that is how the entire game of the planet is happening. And it is much more zoomed than we have been aware of. It is much more specific, it is much more family and identity focused than we would think. I'm going to repeat again. We are talking about taking over of identities, open ground, and taking over of their money. And what would amount for taking over identity? Well, it would be, following my example, my case scenario, someone locking you in a room, that is literally you become unemployed, and then someone starting squeezing you for what you are or what you can be, and trying to make money out of it. It is microcellular approach. In my case scenario, it is in question larger scale of character and larger scale of event. The question is for how long this game would be happening, and for how long we talk about event of stealing history and building out of stolen history. This madness will need to stop. Therefore, we start from for how long this was going on, and what are the parameters, what are the territorial lines on which we can locate that is happening. Also, I have been talking about some kind of point X, because you cannot answer all of this by recognizing two extreme positions. The answer is not on the extreme position when you talk about who is making money or who is bringing capacity to make money and who is bringing that level of financial happening. I have established that we still need to talk about letter H here. We still need to have human to happen, so it can become a playground that can start generating money. So it is not a straightforward question who is taking over, or like deities are taking over from little humans. No, because little humans do not happen to be that much wealth creators on this planet. You need to bring enough of a playground in acceptable parameters of the civilizational parameters. Also, I have established mind dimension. Mind dimension need to be solidly mega to bring yourself on some kind of upper scale of political functioning. However, what I have found on the mega stages is not always mind dimension. It was not that much about mind dimension. And it is equally wrong to associate mind dimension with the size of a body, because it is very often about some qualitative functioning rather than quantitative. I mean, we have obviously much larger size of a brain in gorillas, and it is not happening that we have sharper or higher intelligence. So it is not always about the size of a brain. We at some point we end up talking about standard size of a mind. All of that is leading us to recognizing that we talk still about letter H protocol here, and then it happens, the game over, the takeover, the game of taking over, playing the ball in the hole, and don't ask why. In substance, I have established that we actually, as a humanity, are shooting ourselves in the foot each time. We are shooting the human each time. On one side, there is that tendency to deliver that human, and at the same time, it ends up to be consumed. And that is indicating that we talk about strong play of extremisms that continue to navigate the playground from their extremism perspective. And that's going to be our ongoing battle today as Earthians and as humans, that we always locate the positions of extremism and acknowledge that these are positions of extremism where we cannot allow a play to draw too much of rights to be excused or to go away with more extreme way of living on this planet and way of thinking and way of practices. So therefore we would be looking at extreme practices that cannot be permissible within the parameters of what we would establish as a human living standard for human population. It all comes to that. Therefore, it is planet X. And then in next step, you pay attention to what kind of practices are taking place, because you cannot approve wrong practices that would not be acceptable within protocol human, but then you are letter H or letter X. If you are letter X, then you have to play letter X. That means fair play. That means you cannot do excusable offense. There is, in other words, in Olympic terms, no cheating. In Olympic terms, no cheating. And then you don't end up stealing, and you don't end up that you need to cover up for it. And then that amends your letter H and amends how you comprehend letter H. No, we cannot amend letter H. We cannot amend the Olympic rules. You have to play by it. But you got Nikola Tesla platform. I'm going to talk now about Serbia and presidency of Serbia, which is solidly aligned with Elon Musk protocol letter X. Reading my work on daily basis, plugging into my life, holding me locked in a room, taking away my entire family possessions, taking away my family entitlements, taking away my historic entitlements, plugging in some kind of Englishness and their latest definition of the Neverland, plugging in their financial logic, plugging in their financial ethics, rebuilding the bridge that is going somewhere else. And then we are talking about H for human. Excuse me. It looks to me as T for takeover. And I have a son, which was just yesterday declared solidly as my son and son of my kingdom. And I have no intention to provide him as a T for takeover. Now let's make that also clear. And let's also make clear that today letter H is represented with my work. Because at point of my work, at this level, at my level, you don't have violations, and you don't have criminal, and you don't have takeover. So I'm going to establish that letter H today, that is the crown of earth today, is with me and with my performance. And I cannot give it to England, neither I can give it to my president in format of Nikola Tesla's planet X. I cannot give the planet to Nikola Tesla because he has not passed the exam on levels of anything that is to do with this planet. My verdict for today. When it comes to financial systems, I would say one single sentence. It would not be about hunting the human, but about happening as a human, or happening of a human. It would be about happening of a human. I also have recognized that monarchical systems are where I would like to bring some kind of reform as well. So I would look at these events as a turning point in a recovery of a more solid nationally driven platform, which is important momentum in either maintaining further national identity or also knowing how to relate to territories in the best possible way, and in the process, of course, continue to notice where are the various issues and continue to participate in solving various issues and addressing various issues. But I have not noticed a need to bring monarchies down. In contrary, I found that inappropriately dangerous. And when it comes to financial systems, I would equally notice they have become centerpiece rather, yet in a variety of wrong ways, either to be misused their charisma or to be used their point of attraction, more than we would like to find it on mainstream political platforms. So everything that would be associated to monarchy playgrounds and the circles of monarchy playgrounds would be having special status, and the reform would be happening therefore accordingly on these main parameters. That is Jewish-driven financial schemes that would withhold principal financial scheme, that is Jesus bloodline and hunting Jesus, and on the other targeting hunting whatever and trying to use and misuse it for purposes of money generating. Mother Mary, we established, was not that much far away from it. That is the Queen, Mother, and the Son. That is Olympia and Alexander. We reach here very much Macedonian Empire and point of defeat of Macedonian Empire, obviously by killing Alexander and using mother and son as a financial scheme, financial artifacts for human trade, I would say, and human manipulation and human misusage. This is critical point where any financial system will need to be tested and checked upon, and we cannot approve financial systems that are residing on such platform. I'm afraid this is going to reach as that far as Elon Musk and or slash Tesla platform, and is going to reach Serbia to a great extent, but above all Israel. And in solid foundations, the entire build-up of American society, clearly reaching England as well. Considering the fact that the entire financial network and infrastructure is in England, that is going to majorly hit such English infrastructure. I have provided immediately solution. That is solution is associating two national economies, connecting the financial systems to national economies, classic national level of function, as it is producing food, producing housing, investing in education, investing in variety of entrepreneurship on classic platforms, national levels, oriented, and of course then dealing with this umbrella of previous financial schemes that simply will need to be taken out. It looks to me quite straightforward approach. It should have not taken that much time, but it took that much time because incorporated the monarchies and the political structures and the way how politics function. And it continued to be painful event when it comes to political systems. Again, holding to national identities. We yesterday talked about national symbols. Holding to national identities and national perspectives is going to be way out. Recognizing certain national artifacts or national I'm not going to say playhouses, but identity houses would be beneficial for nations, especially if we have this kind of event as with myself, when you have profoundly active political function, conceptual political thinking, which should be giving to Macedonia strong political highlight. It did not happen because it went somewhere else, majorly in England. So continue to be now ongoing discussion how we are going to resolve that entire matter. Serbia is certainly a strong player here, although in all of the wrong ways. They are trying to play Jesus playbook with entire tale among Mongolian and Babylonian society. Well, the playground is activated on the Temple Mary, not Temple Jesus. And where we recognize that Jesus can be highlighted only as a apostle to Mary teaching. I'm afraid Serbia does not recognize that properly. I'm afraid Elon Musk and Planet X are not recognizing that properly. And as a result, I'm afraid that is because the forces in England are very strong, where Nikola Tesla was certainly planting its network. So I'm going to notice that that continue now to be ongoing struggle. Therefore, on political levels, majorly, where I'm going to insist again, Babylonian society will need to reverse from leading positions, because it has been revealed that they do not play a leading position in the entire saga anyway. The position of Sun is nothing to be underestimated or disrespected or taken as independent status, because clearly, historically as well, it has been established that that is not independent status. This is critically important, and I continue to be against any forces that would like and are very ambitious to take over my son and to use him for solo starter beginning, while hiding the story of mother, and that he is born in the house of mother, not in the house of father. This becomes now a critical point, and it is reaching the roots of the entire emergence of religions as fraternity society. It is reaching the roots of Babylonian societies, and behind that, Atlantis itself. I'm going to find that Atlantis is happening again as ongoing on television, going on a social network, as some kind of graphic design platform. It's just graphic. The moment they put on graphic design pictures, you understand it's complete genetic fabrication. Complete fabrication. These are the stories I cannot believe it appears as stories for little kids. I just cannot believe they continue to pushing it. I do not believe in one gender Atlantis. The way how they project Atlantis, they're projecting it as a male, one gender platform. We cannot accept that on Earth would be such living race, because all of the continents today, as we speak, are solidly having two gender approach. Maoris here are very old, Mayas very old tribes, they're all appearing in two gender approaches. Animals are appearing in two gender approach. Entire life form on the planet appears in two gender approach, especially more complex living organisms, two gender approach. I cannot accept one gender Atlantis. And then associating to the way how our sons look, and wanting to take them away from us, like they're born on Atlantis. No, they have been born out of mother in a family with mother and father. And stop refabricating that particular event. How on earth someone can trust you in anything that follows? That you are fabricating the actual events from position of how they happened in real terms on this planet. You're losing at the starting point here any credibility to develop further any story. I'm going to ask you, Babylonian Society of England, to stop your gaming, or we will need to start going name, surname, address, and phone number, which can also be very quickly arranged. Accordingly, the main obstacle here I'm going to find within the entire emergence of the religion and within the entire Jesus story, actually, emergence of Babylonian society, or society of men, or society of homosexuals, which clearly happened at some point of time as strong political and social group that as a society of fathers that for 2 millenniums roughly took over the entire planet in hands of men, and bringing woman on the level of witchcraft as we speak, still in Babylon, in Vatican, becoming machinery for production of homosexuals. I'm going to find the Vatican continuing to be a factory for production of homosexuals, and for that reason we have to simply close Vatican and any of religious institutions, because I'm going to see them as of now as a factories for production of homosexuals. And I'm not going to have any mercy for that, for such kind of mental deformation that is happening in the mind of that many people. And they continue to spread their mental deformation, mental illness over the rest of humanity. I'm going to notice also that we might talk about some deliberate act of downgrading certain males, or pushing them into some kind of prison conditions and using them by the foolishness of their mind, But it is enough. But continuing to be sorry for these males is not going to give us exit out of it. We have to make difference between recognizing the certain population who is targeted versus allowing churches to continue to exist under such excuse, but then become ongoing machinery for production of homosexuals. Churches, as of today, are going down. And then we talk about issues of targeting and victimizing population because of majorly political reasons, but also obviously reasons of money production, where we question the scheme of Jesus and address the scheme of Jesus within any of the financial institutions and any of the financial organizations. And I think we have covered all of the valid points. So let's move. We have to notice here that main reason why we ended up to be a planet that is enormously destructive is because we don't have properly functional systems. And main reason for that is the way how America ended up to function as a society, as a civilization. We find here enormously reckless spending of money, dysfunctional society that in return does not produce enough of a qualitative base even for its own needs. But it is enormous expenditure, enormous consumption-driven society that is polluting in substance entire planet, and again, a part of polluting, also damaging enormously, destroying territories to great an extent because simply they have not provided proper formula for their own productivity. This is the key. I wouldn't go even that much addressing the consumption before we actually address capacity of territories or ways how they are earning their money and way how they are managing their monies. Therefore, proper functioning of the societies today become critical point. Critical point where we find today reaching being questioned the extent to which the rest of the planet gets devastated. Just one small percentage of population to go away with lavish, out of proportions lifestyle that in return highly produce any qualitative base even for next generation. Out of what we have a general population equally highly neglected, equally incapable to provide the next generation. So we have society that ultimately end up acting and behaving as a black hole, not capable to function even for their own purpose. Therefore, that is going to be our question of today. How functional societies are and how productive they are in terms of producing enough qualitative base on their own grounds in terms of producing qualitative population, qualitative value systems, qualitative management of their territories, and ultimately becoming much more economic, much more responsible, and less demanding versus the outside world, less damaging and less devastating versus the outside world. This become now critical question, and I'm going to pay high attention to this, either from personal perspective or from the perspective of how your entire society functions, or because accepting just personal perspective and personal responsibility is not going to be enough today. More money you have to be more responsible on behalf of your citizens to accept responsibility of how your society functions, because you have taken more space by taking more wealth on your behalf. You have taken more capacity but also more responsibility to act now in times like this on behalf of your nation and provide the most correct answers when we question today the efficiency of the way how your society functions. Accept responsibility, what I'm saying, in proportion with the wealth you have taken on your account. Because that is how that is going to work now. So therefore, there are structures that knew that there will be a point of time where one will need to stand up and defend this earth. And you have given me the ground level position, and you have taken for yourself what exactly position? The Neverland one. Yeah, that one. If there is a statement that you need to pay a price, you will need to pay a price for not giving me on time suitable platform so I can defend this earth. And that happened at the very beginning of my marriage with the so-called Prince of Bel-Air, where clearly I have become not the chosen one. And as a result, prevented to take proper possession on time. But they knew that there will come a time when someone will need to stand up. And they knew they will need to be around to catch the ball. As it was about the ball or as it was about the basketball. Well, the message of today would be, we are not playing today the upper kingdom. Because clearly, I am not that kind of queen. You certainly have let me here to notice that you have chosen some other queen to be North Queen, and that I am not supposed to be the North Queen. As a result of what? You have taken your prime positions, premium positions, and you have given me no possession. So what kingdom we are talking about? Can you answer what kingdom we are talking about? Are you talking about Mongolian kingdom? Nice story, but I'm not Mongolian queen. So what you're going to do about it now? Since this is my work. And no one else's but my work. But I have to notice also that there was a queen called Roxanne in the Nordic kingdom. Well, it was noticeable mention in one of the songs of Sting. Obviously, it wasn't in the play. So I just wonder how someone imagined Roxanne to play the game in the present times. Now, this is going to provide to us now the soundness of the present mainstream political stage. That is certainly going to include the South Kingdom as well, so-called Macedonian kingdom without a king for quite some time, certainly without a queen for quite some time, and certainly without a matrix of a protocol of kingdom for quite some time. But they are still waving the flag, and they still call themselves the ancient Macedonians. I would call them the ancient shipyard, because that is to what level they qualified on international stage. I have to notice as well. This will confirm that we talk about kingdom, that in any of the times and in all of the time was very much international. It was a rather a regional kingdom, where characters therefore would bring the dimension of the region. But I have to notice that for quite some time here the male and female, the female lost versus a male. Although I have problem also to identify that much of males walking on this earth. It is going on some strange phenomenon which I would be probably recognizing as a matter of some kind of predominant Babylonian / homosexual in prevalence, dominance, or society on the mainstream, which would which would then explain long-term intention on this planet to downplay and downsize the importance of woman, not by a man, by the one that are not enough men, by the homosexual society of Babylonians. You will be surprised how south that goes and how far that reaches, all the way to Macedonia. There's only one word I'm going to find here that is not matching the entire description, and that is the notion itself, homosexual, which is reference to home. And I just can't understand why such reference does have reference to home, where usually we would talk about intelligence here. Is that means that intelligence does not happen in male format? Is that means that we talk here about not unisex of a man, but unisex of a woman? However, here I do not talk about body, I talk about mind, and my woman is very feminine, nothing alike the one in Babylon, which I cannot find them rather narrow-minded. I find them there rather not feminine enough. And I'm talking about woman here as absolute temple, not as someone alike or close to. In any case scenario, I'm going to find the protocol human happening at the point of two DNA lines, at the point of two chains of DNA, equally as it is the animals. We have in animals world also two genders approach, so it is not something that we have to question that much now with the human, but rather to discuss human from mind perspective. Human as human, when human derive above the monkey protocol. And how far here, and where we reach the point of mind. And point of mind become indicative that we talk about very strong presence of female identity on principal account. So someone that look like less woman in a context of kingdoms making, that is especially now North Kingdom versus South Kingdom, or Mongolia in this case scenario. I'm going to find that in this context, in some planetary context, as rather second grade event rather than first grade event, as a territorial reference speaking. And excuse me, but I have to say this as well. In times when I have been studying economy and passing one of the most important exams at our university being political economy, where I scored high grade with the professor that everyone was scared and terrified of. When I was enclosing solidly high results in mathematics and philosophy and literature, You have been making a beautiful woman movie in America based on my character. Well, I'm going to say here the loser today is America, not me. Because America become unprepared for the times that are to follow, unprepared for the conversation that is to be triggered, and conversation that is to happen. Similar situation in England happening, a rock band Queen, with reference to my father, who was actually, as I understood now, I didn't have any clue by the way, who was actually kinging the territories there, yet certainly from much more grounded and normal perspective where there was nothing of this, nothing that would suggest that my father would be having problem with any kind of gender issues or things like that, considering the fact that he looked as a classic Chicago profile, classic chica level, classic middle-aged male with mustaches and overweighted with a bigger stomach, and nothing here would suggest some kind of character of Queen, rock band of Freddie Mercury. I have no idea how you pulled out Freddie Mercury out of male with mustaches and stomach. But that is in the way how average Chicago, our territories, average men look like, very much devoted to family life, very much maintaining a family life and being focused on kids and surviving of territory of our territories, which were very troubled in that time, continue to be very troubled. Were always the lifestyle is on the edges of survival, actually. Very intense international pressures, very intense economic issues, overloaded by issues in any generation. And my father was overloaded with all of the such issues. And you are bringing that character in England in overspoiled territories of yours, obviously, where matters became less serious, less responsible. So I have today to tell you one single thing. Since you found yourself and I found you, but you certainly would have been found completely detached, but also totally unprepared and totally out of track of where this conversation is walking and how this conversation is happening, your main issue would be, as the name of your principal house suggests, to question yourself or to be questioned accordingly, how relevant you would be to stay in the play that we today declare. And it would have been therefore on the planetary level happening exactly as some kind of mainstream event in most principal historic heritage related platforms. That you should have been bothered each time to stay relevant and to stay tuned, and you have not been neither tuned, neither relevant. Now, your main question today would be how to become relevant again, rather than to go over ambitious with leading the game. And then you lose perspective what game we are talking about. Where maybe where you are going to notice that most of the countries in the world are not that much entertaining as you are. And then you end up questioning yourself, but then why I am being treated as I am treated? Now that is a question that you should continue asking yourself. But in the same time, you cannot expect that we are going to slide the entire planet down just because you have been found unprepared, not just in this time, but in any of the previous times as well. Since I'm going to return again to reference of the name of your house, you're positioned, in the way how you're positioned, and in any given time, you can relate to issues as far as you can relate, and then you can't relate. And then you end up to be walked over by the issues. And then in the consequences, not that you just get walked over, but we get walked over in package because you have allowed yourself to be walked over. To the extent that you have not managed to become such fortress of defense, defending yourself, but ourselves as well. We are today standing up to complain on long term being walked over by whoever and whatever, including yourself, and this planet in return becomes walked over itself because it's no one there to stand for anything, as that anything should be in any given time logically, philosophically, conceptually, and mathematically understood. And you have been too busy playing beautiful woman. And you continue to be too busy playing beautiful woman. But we are not in that movie today. And nothing is that simple, but you should understand at least how heavy it has become on my shoulders to hold it all as a single woman while you continue to play an idiot for another day. I'm going to use that exact word because it is too heavy on my shoulders already. That I has to deal with rising Russia out there, that I would not like at all to be another second problem in my life of the size as you have become to this world. But that Asiatic Russia, that because of you has become today what it has become, and will become even more on what it has to become because of you, has become too much Asiatic to be that much of a correct answer to the problems of you not being that correct answer. That is all now waiting on my spine. On top of that, the males out there that you are awakening that get confused themselves on where the human today is walking, as they are very willing to bring him in some kind of cave of 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 um of kind of Tibet, or of kind of monks elsewhere, including Vatican, and to completely suck out my homeland, as I'm using today as the only mental escape in this kind of avalanche of wrong answers when it comes to organizing societies. The only island I have remained there now to be overwhelmingly taken by these males that continue to believe Serbia, that human society defines by a male, by the standard of the male, and will continue to be defined by the standard of a male living a monk lifestyle and forgetting that there is a wife and kids in the family as well. We cannot accept such male to continue to speak present in such critical times as are present. We cannot afford such males to confuse our territories. So I'm going to ask you, to the extent that you have not managed today to be on track and available today to assist this fight, at least to stop being part of the problem, for God's sake.